Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and I teach watercolor and sometimes gouache. And today we are doing the Vintage Santa project. This is part of our holiday gouache box. I'm super excited for these projects, and this one is a lot of fun.
I can't think of any Santa Claus specifics. I'm just thinking, oh Santa Claus, oh Santa Claus.
Isn't there one like Santa Claus is coming to town or something?
Santa Claus is coming to town.
There we go. That's Keenan.
Oh, hello.
He sings for us. That's all he does. Okay, so we are going to be doing this project in 6 steps. Our very first step, we are going to paint in our background. Our second step, we're going to do the first layer on the face. Our third step, we will be doing the second layer on the face. That's when we'll be putting color in on the cheeks, the nose, the mouth, all that good stuff. A fourth step, we'll be painting our holly and finishing up our eyes. Our fifth step, we'll paint our hat. And the last step is we'll just be going in and kind of defining the edges on our beard and the hat, kind of like the white areas. So 6 steps. We're using 5 colors. Our very first color is carmine. Our second color is permanent yellow deep. Our third color is permanent white. Our fourth color is turquoise blue. And our last color is ivory black. So we'll be using all 5 of those. And this is gouache. This is designer's gouache. If you've never worked with it before, we have a beginner series. One of them we talk about what is gouache. That's a great thing to watch before you start painting with it. Okay, so we have our outline here. We're going to do our outline and then our oath, and then we'll get started. So I'm just going to tape my outline to my paper using painter's tape. There we go. And then I'm going to take my graphite paper, put it dark, shiny side down, and trace. Now, graphite paper gets better with age, so as you can see, this one has been through the ringer, and it's my favorite piece. That's why I keep going back to it.
Old trusty.
Old trusty.
Old faithful?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to use a red pencil so I can see where I drew. And then I always like to make a mark and then check it. I am going to paint my outline darker than you need to so it shows up better on the camera. Try when you're doing it to have your line be as light as possible. And to change the lightness or darkness of your line, you're going to change your pressure. So this is me light pressure, and then this is me dark pressure.
Under pressure.
You see the difference? Keenan, yes. Okay. Also, I just want to say that the Santa looks really weird with his eyes not colored in, just so you know. And it's funny because when I was making this outline, I probably redid the eyes about 5 times because I just, like, everything I did, it just looked off. And then I realized what was happening is in my reference photo, I don't have like super strong, like the brown and the black kind of like muddle together a little bit. And when I tried to like really define the pupil against the brown, it kind of made my Santa look cross-eyed. Oh. So I was just like, shoot, what can I do? So you'll see here, I just left the dot for the glare, and then we'll color in the eyes. But I felt like if I put the pupils, like any way I put the pupils, it looked cross-eyed. So we'll do that together. I just wanted to let you know that that was kind of my thought process behind it and why.
Did you just redo the eyes multiple times? Uh-huh. But did you paint the whole project every time or just the eyes?
Well, this was for the outline, not the painting.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
The
painting, you can get away with some stuff, right? So if you look really close on this, my pupil is actually like a black chunk, where this one, my pupil is more like a black circle, which like you can't really tell that until you're looking at it, right?
Right.
But when I put that on the outline, it was like, your Santa size are wonky. So we'll do this together. It'll be okay.
He looks extremely excited on the outline.
Yes. Keenan's eating his breakfast and he just dropped it on the table.
I didn't mean to do that. I didn't expect you to call me out, but I actually did at the same time.
Are you surprised?
No.
Okay. Now the dotted areas are just a way to remind you guys that there's going to be like a little bit of a darker value there and stuff. You don't have to put them. It's up to you. Okay. And this is where it's handy to use a color to trace, because you can very clearly see where you traced or haven't traced. We're almost done here. Now I will say that this project is going to take a bit of time. I just want to give you guys a little bit of a warning. There's a lot of little pieces that we need to pay attention to, so take your time with it and don't stress if you're taking a little bit longer than you usually do. It's because we're doing faces. Faces are, even if it's an illustration, they just have more to them.
He looks so jolly.
Yeah, isn't he? Yeah, look at that. Okay, now let's do our oath, and then we'll start painting. If you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just want to say that you'll notice in my step-by-step, I did not start with the background. I did the background later because I wasn't going to do a background at first. I was just going to leave it Santa, and then I realized like that little, it needed something since the edges were white. That's why I added it later. So we're doing it first though, because when you do backgrounds, most of the time you want to put those in first, if you can. So step 1, background. I'm going to use my 3/4 inch wash brush. I'm also using my round 6 and my round 2. These are my go-to brushes. The wash brush we don't use as much, but I decided to have it listed in the supplies because it's super helpful with backgrounds. So have some water, have some blue, have a little bit of yellow. That was too much yellow because now it's green, so I got to pull some of that green. Put some blue in there. And a lot of white. Now I'm getting the color I kind of...
Color mixing is so fun to watch.
Yeah. There we go. I know, I think there's an Instagram account actually that's like just someone mixing colors. Or like having these like thick chunks of paint and then they just like mix them all together and it's so satisfying.
Yeah.
Okay, that looks like a really good color. I like that. Okay, and here we go. I'm just gonna take that blue, and if you want to tape off the edge of your paper so you get a clean line, you can. I'm just gonna go for it. And then I am gonna use some water to spread this color out and to get a lighter wash. Now you can overlap the beard, but just a little bit. Don't go too crazy. And the reason for that is we could just use the white paper as the white part of our beard, and it just saves us a ton of white paint, you know?
So convenient.
So convenient. Now my example is looking a little bit more green than my reference photo here. That doesn't really bother me. If it's bothering you, you can wait for it to dry and just adjust. So like, for example, let's say you painted half of your paper and you're like, oh, this color's different than what I wanted. Well, what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to switch the color right now and then do another layer over here after it's dried a little bit. So you can like do that with gouache. With watercolors, sometimes you just kind of have to go with it, which I think is a beautiful lesson in and of itself, is to just embrace what's there. But with gouache, we kind of have the freedom to adjust things a little bit. And maybe needs to even be more blue. There we go. You just want to make sure you get in between the little parts and pieces. So just overlap them a little, not a lot.
Last year was the first Christmas that my daughters were sentient enough to understand, like, leaving notes.
Yeah.
And leaving notes for Santa,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is just adorable.
Yes.
And so they decided to leave notes for Santa, but they can't write.
Yeah.
They barely knew their letters. So it was adorable drawings of just completely random things.
They left him drawings of random things?
Yes.
That's so cute.
It was so cute. And then the next morning after Santa had bitten the cookies and drank the milk, which he may or may not have regretted, the girls were amazed.
Really?
Yes. They were like, he ate our cookies.
That is a magical moment when Santa eats the cookies.
It really is. Ugh.
Okay, so you see I kind of just painted over that bottom left area and now it feels all the same together. You know what I'm trying to say? Like the same color.
Oh yes, how you painted it the same color.
Yep.
I didn't mean that to sound so...
Okay, so that's our background.
Nice.
That's step one. Just trying to go in there with the little one. Now you'll see that my paper is starting to warp a little bit because we painted the whole thing. I mean, that doesn't really bother me. I'm just going to press down when I do the face. But that's why taping it is sometimes really nice, because then you don't have to worry about, I mean, it warps a little bit, but it's still taped down. Okay, we're going to move on to step 2, the face. Okay, we're going to mix a skin-ish tone. Now, the nice thing about this too is this is more of an illustration, so if your colors are a little bit more vibrant, that's okay. You can see here with our cheeks and our nose that we really went for that red. So don't stress yourself out too much about doing a skin color. So I'm going to grab a little bit of red, pull it to the side, and I'm going to add some water to it just to lighten it up. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of this yellow, and there's green here from my yellow when I mix blue. I'm going to grab some of that, both. I'm going to mix that with my red. And then now I'm starting to get kind of a peachy color. And I'm going to grab a little bit of white, introduce that to my party.
Oh, you had 2 blobs of white.
Yeah, I had one down here and I had one up here.
Yeah, that's efficient.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice, like if I know I'm going to use white for mixing a face and white for mixing the background, I'll just separate them. So then that way I don't like hurt the whole pile of white, you know. Okay, so then now I added water, I added white, now I have this like light tan color, okay? And so I'm going to kind of do pretty much like a watercolor wash. over the face. I'm going to be avoiding the eyebrows and the little tufts of white hair that's coming out. And I'm using my round 6 for this. I also will be avoiding, there's a shine spot on the cheeks, on both cheeks and also the nose. So I'm not going to paint that. I'm going to leave that white. And little shine spots here on the nose. Okay, that is the first layer of our face. I'm going to let that dry, and while that dries, I'm going to go to the mouth. So, the mouth, the lips are going to start off red, so I'm going to grab carmine. And right on that left-hand side and the right-hand side, it's going to be like pure red. And then I want it to lighten up, but instead of using white, I'm going to use yellow as my value change. So I'm changing the value by hue. So I introduce a little bit of yellow to it, so now it's like an orange. I'm just painting a little bit more. Okay. And the bottom, just do a swoop along the bottom. And there's 2 glare spots in that mouth, so I'm painting around that. And I should switch my 2 because it's a much smaller brush. And then now I'm going to grab mostly mostly yellow.
How do you think Santa sits in the sleigh?
Leaning to the right.
Just a little bit?
Yep. Okay, so using this kind of mostly yellow. I'm going to finish off that lip. Like so.
Santa needs some chapstick.
No, he has berry red lips.
Oh.
Keenan. There's nothing wrong with Santa's lips. Don't shame Santa. And again, the wonderful thing, let's say you guys just try to do this and you're like, oh no, the whole thing turned red. Well, my friends, that's okay. Because you could just take some yellow, let it dry, put some yellow on top of it. Just paint over it.
Boom, painted.
So great. Boom, problem solved. Boom, there is no problem. Boom, you're good at this. Just like that. Okay. So we did the bottom part of the lips. Let's do the inside of the mouth. So that one, I'm going to take a little bit of carmine and a little bit of black and mix that together. And you'll see here that there's a value change. So right where it's near the top of the mustache, that's the darkest part, and then it will get lighter. So I'm using this mixture of black and red here. And then I'm just going to keep adding red to this as we go down. I did a water drop on my background. I'm just going to grab it. And you're just going to keep going down till it hits the lip. So the hope here is that the inside of the mouth is reading more like purple red because we're using black, and then the lip itself is reading orange red. And that's how we have that difference there. Because if we were to use the same colors then they would kind of run into each other and it would be a little bit harder to distinguish what part is what. Not impossible, but just not as easy. Okay, we got a mouth.
Nice mouth.
Woohoo! Okay, now we're gonna go back into the face and we're gonna kind of go in and out a lot. There's quite a few layers to this. I just broke it up into 2 steps, but that doesn't mean we'll just hit it once and then one more time. There's gonna be a little bit more than that. So just be patient. Your painting will inform you as you go. So what I'm gonna start with is I have my skin tone here. This was my base skin tone, right? And now I'm gonna add a little bit of color to it. So I'm gonna swoop in some carmine, swoop in some of this kind of orange that I mixed off to the side earlier. And then kind of where like the hat would meet, just like where there would be darker values, I'm gonna start introducing this darker value. So there would be a darker value where the hairline meets the hat because the hat itself is casting a shadow on the skin. There's going to be a darker value right at kind of where this nose is starting to stick out, just a little one, so just a swoop. There is going to be a darker value here. See this line here that connects the left eye to the eyebrow? Mm-hmm. We have that. We have right underneath the eyebrow. And notice I'm doing swoops. This one I am kind of letting it be a little bit more chunky than I usually do, right? And that's because it is an illustration. So we do have room here to outline. We do have room here to do just brush strokes and let those be seen. They don't have to transition perfectly. Okay, and then there's kind of on the corner of this left eye where it connects to the hair. We got a little bit of shadow there. We got a shadow where this the right is meeting the eyebrow up at the top too, like so. And at this point, you're gonna be like, my Santa is starting to look creepy. Yes, yes it is. Keep going. Okay, and then that same swoop, I'm gonna start going to the cheeks.
I didn't think about this till now, but your background dried so fast.
Oh yeah, I mean gouache dries super fast, which can be a really great thing, and also great because like easier to layer.
Yeah, yeah.
And like not as worried about my hand resting in it, right? But like frustrating if you're trying to blend. That's why I think in the beginner series I talked about like having a water bottle present if you're trying to blend a lot, because then you can just like spray your painting and it reactivates it, and then you don't have to worry about it drying so fast. Okay, so I'm just doing a little skin layer on the cheeks, also on the nose. Now the nostril, we're just going to do a swoop there, okay, to the left, so just a curve, and then here, kind of following the same thing as the cheeks, avoiding the white glare spot, adding a little bit darker value.
He looks great. He just has harsh lighting on him right now. That's all it is.
That's all it is. It's all right, Santa. We got you. We'll get this.
We'll shift those lights, good sir.
Okay. So then, great job. We're going to keep going. We're going to do another layer. So like where the forehead and in between the eyes, that part's pretty much done. The eyelid itself is pretty much done. Now we're going to focus more on the cheeks and the nose. So I'm going to pick up more of the red and a little bit of the yellow. Get a nice rosy color. And starting at the bottom here, I'm going to introduce this rosy color to my cheeks, and I'm going to start at the bottom, and then I'm going to kind of use my watercolor blending technique, which is I'm drying off my brush, and then like using the color that I already laid down and then blending to the glare spot, but keeping the darkest value at the bottom.
His cheeks make me really happy.
I know, they're just so rosy. Okay? So you can see I'm pushing the paint color down so it stays darker at the bottom. Okay, same thing on the other side. This one, it stays really rosy on the left bottom. So that's where I'm going to put in my color. And then it kind of rounds out. And that's how we create like round form, is we do like, this is feeling round, the highlights in the middle. So as it's curving, it's having a darker value. And instead of us using brown or black to show that, we're using like red. And that's why his cheeks look very round and very rosy. Now he's starting to look a little bit happier. Okay, now I'm going to take a second and let that dry. And I'm just going to outline a couple areas. And if you want to switch to your 2, that same kind of rosy red that we just put on the cheeks, I'm going to take that and I'm actually going to do the eyelid on the right-hand side just to outline it, just like that. And the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing on the left-hand side. It's kind of like you're putting eyeliner on them, but red for right now. And then I'm going to follow these cheek lines a little bit too. I know it looks creepy. It's going to be okay. Oh, we didn't do the nose. Let's put in that rosy nose.
Rosy nose. Rosy is a fun word. I'm not sure why.
I wanted to name my child Rosie.
Really?
Yeah, Michael's like, no. I'm like, what? That's so cute. Okay. So same thing, red on the bottom and the top. And then kind of just use water to blend out as you get near the middle. Okay. He's looking good, you guys. Looking good. Okay. Now we're going to do another rosy layer because we want it to be, that's a pop of color, if you couldn't tell. No.
I can't do that one.
You can't.
Oh, got it.
You got it. Good job, Keenan.
Thanks, nailed it.
Okay. So same thing except just with more of a red. Sorry, my head was in the way.
That's okay. We forgive you.
Thank you. So putting in that and then rinsing your brush and kind of just blending out.
Where did Santa originate from?
Ooh. I don't know.
I'm going to have to Google it.
I mean, St. Nicholas.
St. Nicholas. Jolly old St. Nick.
That's all I know.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing on the right-hand side. Nice and rosy on the edges. Again, I'm kind of painting around my mustache here. Jolly. And then take your water and blend. Oh yeah, look at those rosy cheeks. And then on the nose, at the top of the nose and the bottom. And then like you guys can repeat that step as much as you want. You guys can decide how rosy and red you want these cheeks to feel. It's totally up to you. I'm going to do one more like little quick one. Yours might not need it. So feel free to ignore me. Feel free to add more.
Feel free to create your own.
Feel free to turn, I was going to say feel free to turn me off if you're like, this, I'm done with this. And then like for me, I want his nose to be like really red. So I'm going to take like pure red and just do red at the top part. And really just be like, he's got a red nose. That's me yelling it because that's how bright it is.
Wow.
What'd you find, Keenan?
A lot.
Yeah?
From the History Channel, so you know it's real.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to read all of it, but he goes back to 200 AD. 280 AD. In modern-day Turkey. Well, Patara near Myra in modern-day Turkey.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to do the eyes. So first I'm going to start off by mixing a brown using my 2. So I'm going to grab some black, and brown is dark orange. So black, to mix orange we need yellow and red.
This is so interesting.
Yeah?
Yes.
Good.
Saint Nicholas. The legend of Santa Claus can be traced back hundreds of years to a monk named Saint Nicholas.
Okay.
200 AD. Much admired for his, I don't know how to pronounce this word, P-I-E-T-Y.
P-I-E-T-Y.
Piety.
Piety.
Piety, okay. And kindness. Saint Nicholas became the subject of many legends. It is said that he gave away all of his inherited wealth and traveled the countryside helping the poor and sick.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why everyone liked him.
Yeah.
He was friendly.
Yeah.
He cared.
Okay, so I mixed my brown, and then I also pulled a little bit of brown off to the side and mixed more yellow into it to get like a golden brown. So I'm going to take that golden brown, and then on the left-hand side, I'm going to start painting my eyeball on my Santa, okay, on the left-hand side, and a little bit on the right-hand side, okay, and then same thing, but on the right-hand side, I'm going to be doing that gold. I'll put a little on the corner here, okay. And then I'm going to take that dark brown that I have mixed, and using that dark brown, I'm going to put it at the top part, because remember when we've done eyes before, the top part of the eyeball, like the eyelid and the eyelashes and stuff like that, there's value changes within your eye. So that's why we're doing 2 browns, okay? Just to really help that sense of depth. And we haven't put in the pupils yet, right? We're avoiding the white glare spot, but we haven't really put in the pupils. That's okay. Now he's starting to look a little bit okay. Not as scary. Okay, now I'm going to give him some more eyeliner, but this time it's going to be black. So I'm taking my 2 and I'm grabbing some black. And just so you guys know, this part is the majority of the work we will be doing. Okay, so like this amount of detail we're not going to be putting everywhere. It's just the face has a lot of parts to it. You know what I mean? We want to give them, you know, attention, the attention they deserve.
What if you painted Santa as a rock star?
That would be so cool.
Awesome. You said eyeliner and I immediately thought of that.
Okay, so I'm taking my black and just kind of, I'm following the shape of the eye, the outline of the eye. Okay, on the top.
Oh, that gave him...
And the bottom.
Holy cow.
Okay. And then the same thing on the left-hand side.
What? Head?
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Okay. Now we're gonna put in our pupil.
That transformed his eyes so fast.
Yeah, isn't it so exciting?
Holy cow.
Okay, now I'm gonna put in my pupil. So I'm just gonna like put in a black area around my glare. I'm gonna make my glare dot a little bit tinier. So to the left of my glare dot on my eye, on my right eye is where I'm putting in that black. And then on my left eye, on my left eye, I'm also painting in my pupil to the left and making my glare dot a little bit tinier. He looks good. Now we're gonna add eyelashes. Now eyelashes are a little bit tricky with a paintbrush. So I made them a little bit thicker on purpose. But if you wanna use like a micron pen instead, that could be easier for you, or just a black pen. But I just did a little boop. And try and have them thin at the top. Like get a little bit thinner at the top. And if they're not quite there, make them longer. That's what I'm doing on this one. And I'm going to turn my paper for the other ones. There we go. Now I'm noticing that my black edge on the bottom left hand of my eye got a little bit thicker than maybe I would have wanted. Is that a problem? No. Because one, you can leave it, or two, with gouache we can just paint over it. So I could take that brown and some white, and just very carefully thin it out. So I did a white first, and then when that dries, I'll go back in with the brown. But I wanted to do white first so it really shows up. And then on like the part where it's touching the white of the eye, I can go in with white paint, just white paint. And thin that out. And you can do the same thing on the top. If you feel like any part that is feeling a little bit too thick, you can be like, oh, let's just adjust that. No big deal. Okay, we'll go back into that eye. We're gonna leave it to dry just for a second. I'm gonna do a little bit like right on the corner here of this eye. I'm going to do one more layer of wash. I feel like it needs a little bit extra color there. Mm-hmm. There. Kind of just look at your reference photo and see, like, look at the values, look at the different colors, look if there's a place that just needs a little extra attention. It might not on yours. Mine, it looks like I do, so I'm just going to add it. Just a little bit here and there. And then if you want to do like one more little edging where that hat meets the skin, you can. Okay. Now let's go in with that brown. There we go. And then like, let's say you want the eye, like eyes are so crazy, but like, let's say you want the eye to appear bigger as if he's opening his eyes bigger instead of like squinting them, then you would just put more of a highlight at the top of the eyeball. Let me get white paint on there. It's got too watery. So just kind of like play with it. If you want to give him a little extra love at the top to make his eyes open up a bit more, you can. If you want him to be like smiling so big that his eyes are smaller, then you would just have darker values and have your black be a little bit thinner. But you can play with that. And the nice thing too is just like, okay, with gouache, you can always just like layer it, right? So I'm gonna do a little bit, another layer right on that edge there on both sides. It wasn't quite as dark enough the first time. Okay, he's looking good. And I'm gonna leave the eye alone for a second. I can come back to it if I feel like it needs attention. My cheeks are looking good. And then like this, I always love to add like undertones of other colors, where if I wanted to introduce just maybe a little bit of orange in some of these cheeks and on the nose, I can. Just like warm up that red a little bit. There we go. Nice, warm red cheeks.
Do you have a favorite Christmas song?
I don't think so. Do you? I mean, I really just love Christmas music in general.
Did you need a pencil?
Yeah. I realized I didn't put in the top line on my hat, so I'm just gonna boop. That's it. Okay. He's looking so good.
He is.
He's looking so happy.
We all need this guy's smile today.
I know. We need a little jolly. All right. Sorry, it makes me. I'm looking at him and he's making me chuckle. Okay, and then I'm going to take this brown and I'm just going to do a little earlobe edge right here. Just like a little. There's his ear. Boop. There's a wrinkle on his nose. Boop. And I think we already kind of got all the lines in other places. If you want to add that line, can. And maybe his nose a little bit. We'll just do a little boop, boop, boop. Okay, sorry. All right. The eyes, the face, they're looking good. I think we're done. I'm going to move on to a different area though, give my eyes a break from looking at the face, and then I'll come back to it if I need to. And we're going to move on to step 4. We're going to do the holly. And so I'm going to start with just red for my holly. I'm going to do just red right now, and then I'll put a little bit of shadow later. But just those 3, boom, boom, boom. Now we're going to put in the leaves, mix some yellow and some blue together for my green. And you guys can decide how green. I'm going to do a darker green first, and then I'll do like yellow highlights on it. So here's my dark green. Now the hard thing with gouache is like we will be painting over our lines, so it's a blessing and it's kind of a curse because now I can't see where that line was, but that's okay, we can just eyeball it. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that when you're painting with gouache and it's opaque, you cover your lines. Doot, 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 doot. Okay. And now I'm going to mix more yellow into my green and do like a light yellow on top of my leaves. And you can do it right away. If it's not working, just wait for it to dry a second. I'm going to switch to my 2 instead of my 6 so I can get a little bit tighter edges. But don't be afraid of a little bright color here and there. And then last thing on that is I'm going to mix even more black into my green to get it nice and dark green. You can even do the brown if you don't like how the black is making your green gray. And I'm going to just kind of outline these. And if you got to make them bigger to get that nice thin spike, there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to go off script, you know?
I prefer off script. Unless I have an outline, then I have to go within the lines.
Yeah.
So, never mind. I recant what
You
I said.
you regret what you said?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be funny if like we told everybody that these were like scripted? Like every single thing. Keenan, line.
Line. Just start yelling line. This is when you say.
So there's our holly. Just, do you know what's funny about like holly leaves is like our brain knows like when they see those berries, when they see those spiky leaves, they know what's going on. But man, the leaves themselves are really funky shaped and I have a hard time like leaving them alone because of how funky shaped they are. I just want to like, I'm like, that can't be right, that can't be right. And I just keep on messing with it. And it's like, Sarah, they are so obvious what they are. They do the hard work for you. You don't need to stress out about this, you know? Okay, so there's that. And then I'm gonna take my little red and black mixture that I have left over from my mouth. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of shadow on some of my berries. Just the, like if you want one to overlap, if you want one on top, then paint a shadow of the one underneath, kind of where that edge is. Just kind of go along the edges. It doesn't have to be super detailed, just enough of a darker value to be like, yeah, these are three-dimensional. And then we're gonna mix a little bit of white with red. And if you want to like warm it up and do like a value change by hue, you can add yellow to it, or you can just let it be kind of like a light pink. And we're just gonna do a little highlight. And bam.
Boom.
Berries. Okay, now we're gonna do the hat. And I think I'm gonna try and do this with my wash brush. So I'm gonna use my red. I'm gonna paint in, oh, this stuff goes on like butter.
That looks amazing.
Doesn't that red just, oh, it's so satisfying.
It's amazing. Wow.
Now I got it a little bit into my holly leaves here, that's okay. I can paint over that, so I'm not gonna stress. Okay. If you want to use your round for this instead, you absolutely can.
I like using a full wash.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to kind of work around the hairs. And that part I'll save for my 2. So using my 2, I'm going to paint around the little tufts of hair that's poking out of the cap. And then you can do like the edges if you want to like round anything off. Okay, so we painted the whole thing, and now we want to give our hat some form, right? So I'm going to take my red, I'm going to mix a little bit of black with it to make a dark red, and then where the ball meets the hat, and you can kind of see there's going to be a shadow on your outline here. See that kind of dashed part? Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking at here.
Did you see the Christmas movie on Netflix with Kurt Russell?
Yes, where he's Santa Claus?
He's Santa Claus.
Yeah. Now there's a fold here in the hat, so I can kind of see my pencil line. I'll put it in for you guys. Right there. And then on the back side is where it's shadowed. And then if you want it to like transition smoother, what you can do after you put in your shadow is grab some red paint and like just kind of like blend that area where they meet. Hmm. Okay, and then there's a overhang on this side too, right? So we got to put a shadow in there, right here.
Those shadows, it's amazing what a shadow does.
I know.
Goodness.
There's my black. And then for me, I put that line in so you guys could see that pencil line, but it's sticking out a lot to me right now. It's kind of bothering me. So I'm just going to go in with my red and kind of like cover that up. Now the other thing that you can do is if you want there to be a tiny little highlight on your red hat, like maybe where that fold is, right? Because that's what's kind of sticking out at us. I'm gonna mix, oh, I'm gonna need more yellow. I'm gonna mix yellow with my red and do kind of like an orange highlight. So I'm doing, again, I'm doing a value shift by hue instead of by like adding white. So it's just gonna give us a little highlight, but won't turn it pink because I didn't want to turn my Santa hat pink. Can you see that little, just that little lighter color?
Yes, just a little, just barely.
Yeah, it's like it's a barely there thing. It doesn't have to be like straight yellow. There we go. It can even be kind of here too, if you want. Yes. Yes. Okay. Now we're going in. That was step 5.
Dang.
Yeah. Now we're kind of like, we're at the end here, you guys. So this is kind of where we clean stuff up. We go back and revisit some areas. I highlighted the top part of my eye on the left-hand side here, but I think I used too much white because it's reading as gray, and I just want to cover that up.
I know a guy who shares my birthday, and he has two different colored eyes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I know.
So I just did a little wash over that really quick. And then I'm going to fix the green on my holly because I had the red kind of go over that. So I'll just paint over that. And then this red line didn't make it all the way down, so fix that. It's just we're closing some gaps right now. That. Okay. Okay. And now you want to make sure that you get white and like keep it a really clean white. So like try and find an empty space in your palette. And I'm going to take the white and like on my ball here where the blue overlapped, I'm going to paint where the blue overlapped. And then using my round 2, I'm just going to kind of do the edge. Make it nice and round. If my outline, I think my outline had like a weird curve in it, so let's round that out. Let's go where the blue kind of overlapped on the beard. Let's go over some of those areas with white. Now, just so you know, the white of the paint is going to have a slightly different color than the white of the paper. So your edge here is going to feel a little bit different than the center of your beard. That's okay. That doesn't bother me. If it really bothers you, you can paint the whole beard. It's like, why? Why do I need to do that?
Is it a darker? I guess we'll see.
Well, it's just because it's opaque. It almost is more like a texture, so it does create like almost more of a gray color, I would say.
Oh, perfect.
But that's okay because we're going to do some gray edges anyway. And then I'm going to take my white and I'm going to start doing the little mustache hairs kind of coming up.
Mustache.
Okay, also on the forehead here. And then we got little fuzzies because like this part of the hat has a little texture. So we're just going to do a fuzzy edge.
Look how good that looks.
Just gives it a little pop, you know?
Yeah.
You can also do it on the skin too. Skin side. Okay? And now we're going to go in with the light gray and define some of these edges, okay? So I have white. I'm going to grab a little bit of black. Oh, that black had red in it. Don't want that because that will make purple. Get some just black. Get some just white. Mix a light gray. And then using this gray, we're going to, and now my pencil marks are pretty dark. So like, if your pencil marks are pretty dark too, you might not need to do this, but I'll just go over it with the gray just in case. But I'm just gonna kind of like do an edge on my mustache, kind of outline it. Right, I'm gonna outline my eyebrows. Same thing on this side. Just follow the edge of my outline. And then here, you can also do a gray texture too, like right here where the hat meets the beard. I'm just gonna put a little bit of gray there. Kind of show that it's coming around. Okay, we gotta do this wisp of hair. Boop. Boop. Fuzzy edges on here, I just use gray to kind of do a couple sticking out. If you wanted to leave that just white, you can. It will show up against the blue, but. And then also some of these beard edges. Just kind of giving them a little bit of shape, a little bit of curl here and there.
It's amazing what those little accent things, how they change it.
Yeah, it does create just some nice finishing touches.
Yeah. It's amazing. His beard makes me think of a big cloud.
Yeah. And it kind of like, and this is kind of why I like illustration, because you can outline stuff and it gives you like, it's a way to like fill in the gaps, because like when I'm painting around stuff, I'll leave like a white border, like a little thin line, or the line just isn't as smooth. But with these outlines, you can just cover them up. They fill in the white spaces. Like they really can just like finish up a painting, which I think is nice. And then also taking this gray just kind of like around the mouth a little bit. I'm just going to do a couple little lines to show that this beard is attached to something, even though you can't really see it. It's just a little hint.
It's a real beard, and he grew it himself.
That's right.
Good for him.
Good job. And then, like, let's say you were painting your eyes and you're like, oh, my glare got so tiny. Go back in there, make it bigger. You can. Or maybe you lost your highlight on your nose. You can put it back in. Or, like, really?
Really?
You guys can do whatever you need to do to make this vintage Santa. And he looks good. Just gonna kind of curl up this guy here. Yeah. All right.
Nice.
He's done. Woo!
Wow.
That was good.
He looks so great.
He looks so fun, and I really loved this project. I hope you guys had fun with it too. I hope you were patient enough with yourselves, because yeah, the face part got a little bit hairy, but that's okay. So if you painted this, can't wait to see it. Tag us on Instagram at Let's Go Make Art or hashtag Let's Make Art. If you're on Facebook group, you can share our group there. That's for the sole purpose of you guys sharing your work. That's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. If you need any of these supplies, if you need a refill, your gouache supply, if you don't have a 3/4 inch brush, which I highly recommend just having in your arsenal, you can go to letsmakeart.com. And Keenan, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed this holiday box. It was so fun making it for you, and I'll see you guys later.